Hello everybody, and welcome back to Boss Battles of Wraeclast, the somewhat comprehensive guide to the various bosses in Path of Exile 2. In today's episode, we are finally starting on the bosses of Act 2, and we're going to start off with the most hated boss for the majority of newer players, Rathbreaker. Now, this boss can be located in the very first zone of Act 2. It is your first quest. You are sent off to kill some hyenic, however they say it, invaders, and Rathbreaker is the boss you have to face. And this boss can be a bit of a pain in the backside, as a lot of his abilities can get quite overwhelming if you don't know how to deal with them. Anyway, without further ado, here is Rathbreaker. Okay, so we're going to start the explanation for this boss a little bit earlier. We haven't seen the checkpoints or found the arena yet, but there are a couple of things you need to pay attention to for this fight. So when you enter the boss's area, you will see a checkpoint. We're about to come up to that very soon. And then as you make your way towards the back of the area, you'll notice this big cliff where the boss is stood. You will have two of these raiders stood with him. And then just below the cliff in front of the boss, you'll notice a kind of semicircle of hyena demons that sat there looking at him. Now, these demons won't attack you as soon as you approach them. You can attack them, though, and I would highly recommend taking out those hyena demons when you first see them. If you've got some heavy AoE abilities, take them all out so you don't have to deal with them throughout the fight, as the boss will be summoning waves of them as well. So we're about to see it here. There is the checkpoint. Run into the zone, start making our way towards the back corner. There are the hyena demons, the big circle of them, or the semicircle of them. And then behind them is the boss stood up on the cliff. So yeah, just take out these hyena demons so you don't have to deal with them throughout the fight. Once you've taken them out, start making your way towards the cliff, towards the back edge. You'll notice there's a little walkway that you can kind of walk up. As you're walking up that walkway towards the boss, there are the raiders and the bosses next to them. There is another cliff at the back here, where you'll see these other raiders that are throwing spears at you. Now, I think if you have some good ranged abilities, you can probably hit those guys, but obviously because I'm a melee character, I can't hit them, so what I try to do in this fight is I stand at this side of the cliff. I stand right by the edge where the boss was stood, to avoid having those raiders throwing spears at me throughout the whole fight. And then with Rathbreaker himself, he's got a couple of different attacks you need to pay attention to. There is that one just there. So that is his first heavy attack. He will slice the ground in this line in front of him. He'll slice the ground twice. You'll kind of notice the kind of lines that he leaves on the ground. He'll do that twice, and then he will then slam the ground for his third attack, which will be a heavy, unblockable attack. You'll notice he'll glow bright red, and he will also have the standard heavy attack sound effect. So you'll see him kind of swing his sword there, slices the ground twice, and then glows red, and that's the heavy attack right there. The big kind of line shockwave comes out in front of him. Avoid that at all costs. I think for majority of characters and majority of builds will probably get one shot by that if you get caught by it. My character is a life, strength, and armor, like physical damage reduction character, and that attack still hits me for 90% of my health. So yeah, avoid that at all costs. As soon as you see him glow bright red, start dodging to the left or to the right, and you can avoid it quite easily. He doesn't keep following you when he glows red. He'll charge up the attack and then just slam the ground, so it's quite easy to avoid as long as you're dodging. The second major attack you need to pay attention to is a charge attack. You'll notice the boss just kind of charges off in a random direction, usually towards the back of the area, towards the cliffs at the back. And as he charges off, you'll notice a line of spears that are being thrown by the raiders. Now, the line of spears isn't very wide. It's quite easy to avoid. But one thing you need to pay attention to is that line will make its way across the arena towards the edge of the cliff where you're stood. So if you're following my advice and staying by the edge, they will be coming towards you. You can avoid them quite easily, but just to make sure you don't get caught in that line of spears, you can see them just there. They do hit for multiple instances of physical damage, so if you get caught in that line and multiple spears hit you, it can add up in terms of damage. Now, the boss does also have a third slam attack. You just saw it there. It's not a heavy attack, so he doesn't glow and you don't hear the sound effect, but you will see him kind of wind up his sword behind his head and slam the ground quite quickly, and it does do that standard line shockwave of damage in front of him. It's not difficult to avoid. It doesn't hit that hard. For me, it hits me about 40-50% of my health, so it's still a pretty heavy hit, but it's pretty easy to avoid. Again, if you see him kind of wind up his sword towards the back of his head to slam the ground, just start moving to the left or to the right. You can dodge roll as well to make it easier. And then finally, he is also summoning these waves of hyenas throughout the entire fight. They do add up over time, so again, I would recommend have some heavy hitting AoE abilities to take them down. Ooh, he dropped a Chaos Orb. Very nice. But yeah, that pretty much is Rathbreaker. After you've killed the boss, you will still have some hyena demons that will be making their way up from the lower part of the cliffs, so you need to kill those. And then the raiders that were stood at the back on those cliffs, they will have jumped down if you didn't kill them. So you can make your way to the back of the area and start taking those guys down as well. Now, but after you've killed the boss, he doesn't drop anything. He did drop a Grand Life Flask, which I missed completely because I'm an amateur and I wasn't paying attention. But for this point onwards, you can just take the portal back to the caravan area because there is nothing else to do in this zone. You've killed the boss and that is the quest done, but he doesn't drop anything, so you don't have to worry about looking for anything you might have missed. But yeah, that is Rathbreaker. Thank you everybody for watching, and I shall catch you in the next episode.